here you've got this massive drop shipping enterprise across America ruining Main Street, and across California you have e-commerce eating up all these small Main Street. Why is this what we're selling in California?
In today's episode, I sit down with Elaine Culotti, owner and founder of Mayors Matter, empowering mayors for a stronger California.
$18 trillion of new business will come into the United States over the course of the next 10 years because of what Trump has set up. Zero is coming to California.
What's really driving this problem?
The mayors in most cities that I have spoken to are not about the fact that they're Democratic or Republican. They want safe streets and they want economic development. What they want is the pursuit of happiness. Sacramento ruins California. Power-hungry politicians ruin California. We've lost the plot.
What do we do here? This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Elaine Culotti, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Jan, thank you. I've been trying to get on your show for quite some time.
Well, but you do have a really interesting project that you've gotten yourselves involved in, among many, this Mayors Matters project, and you call it a crisis, but let's call it a political disconnect between California and DC, and you view that as a problem, as a very committed Californian. Tell me what's going on.
I think it's not a big secret that California is the farthest left state in the union. And I think it's just like people commonly think, if I say to someone in DC, I'm from California, they don't shut the door, but they're like, oh gosh, how are you doing? And what's important, I think, for people to know is that the majority of California is actually not to the far left. We're a very purple state. I've talked to people from Humboldt County, which is the very top of California, to Chula Vista, all the way, into the kind of El Centro/Central Valley and all of that area, to Santa Monica and Pacific Palisades, so I've covered it all, and it does not matter if you have an R or a D in a lot of cases. There's really two priorities in California, and we don't focus on them. And what I decided to do was document that. Because I
Wait. What are the two priorities?
Well, they should be listed at the end, but only because I think that there's a story that I want people to believe when I tell you that the majority of California is not blue or red. And I always say to Republicans in DC, when they say, how are we going to take back California? I remind people that's what are you taking it back from? I mean, California belongs to California. You don't have a right on either side to take back California. We're a very easygoing bunch of people. We're not in other people's business. And the group at the top that has the limelight, which would be like the Newsom administration, for example, don't represent all of California, and it's frustrating. And I think Californians want what everybody wants in America, and most Californians, in even left Democrats, any color, any race, any age group will tell you we need safe streets. So that is our biggest issue, is the safety and crime and homelessness and dirt and filth and everything else. And it all comes under this one bucket. Californians know that they've been gaslit, but they've been gaslit from the top down, not from the bottom up. And that's about power. We just had debates for the gubernatorial race, and there were 6, I think, Democrats and 1 Republican. Now, how does that happen? There's a lot more running. Well, they're going to pick it by who has the most, people watching. Well, that doesn't mean anything. It means nothing, because you don't want to elevate somebody that has good ideas. That's what it comes down to. And if you don't fund or elevate someone that has good ideas, then they don't get the limelight, and then people don't get to hear good ideas. I do a lot of interviewing. I've been doing this Daily Signal thing. I've had I just filmed Undercover Billionaire for Discovery. I've done a lot of, hardcore California research. And what I have found is that the people that I talk to are very different than the faces of California that we put forth as our representation. And that's not lost on me.
And that's also leadership you're talking about, because this is indeed the whole project of this Mayor's Matter, right?
Correct.
Which is finding leadership, but apparently not the top leadership, but leadership that has this diverse set of views.
Well, in a city,
or is it not a diverse, just different from what we're told?
Well, it's two things. So, the first, as we discussed, is about the safety issues, but the second is really important, and I think this is like fundamentally why we're here. And that's that I haven't talked to a single leader whose, if not first, certainly second most important need for their city, municipality, town is, are you ready? You're never going to believe it. Economic development. How about we make some money? How about we work? How about we create a better environment in our, small town of 200,000 people than why isn't that our priority?
So just, if I may jump in, right, sort of the stereotype that I have, okay, about California is that a lot of that money that's kind of in the system from taxpayers goes to overhead. That's the stereotype I have. Is that right?
About how expensive we are to operate California?
Correct.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, people aren't ready for how bloated California is. The world isn't ready for it. We're starting to get an idea about how government has, across the United States, has kind of, gone off the tracks a little bit in terms of its size, its mass. And I think Republicans, I'm using my right hand, I don't know if this comes backwards sometimes, but Republicans on the right generally prefer a smaller government, and they're more sort of fiscally responsible and worried about how much money we're spending. And then Democrats, I think, prefer a larger government and are socially very concerned about how people that are underserved or certainly, less privileged are supported by that government. And these two paradigms, were designed and should be working together. They should be, we should be watching a budget, and we should be watching out for the people that are cut out. And instead, what has happened is these two boxers have gone to their corners, and their corners have their posse and their fight coaches saying, you got to win, you got to say this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to say that, you got to do this. And the whole swath in the middle is like, I don't know if I agree with that, or I don't know if I agree with that. And I can certainly tell you, as not a political person, just as a hard-working taxpayer entrepreneur, my party left me a long time ago. And when we have massive races going across the U.S., the Republican Party and the Democratic Party do not come forward as a group, so as a GOP or a DNC, and support good ideas in the middle. They would rather support a bad idea on their team than a good idea in the middle. And that's terrible. The Trump administration is not in a conversation with California. There's zero conversation. We're completely left out of it in California. And this does not seem to bother Californians. I watched the comments on the debate, and there were news reporters saying the person that's going to win the governorship is going to be the person who stands up to Trump. And I said, that does not represent me. Like, why is this what we're selling in California? $18 trillion of new business will come into the United States over the course of the next 10 years because of what Trump has set up. Zero is coming to California. We're not even in the discussion. In fact, we lost $2 trillion because of billionaires' tax and just bad decisions on the left. And the left is in charge, so they have to bear the responsibility of the bad decisions. So if California loses money, if California loses taxpayers and they leave, if California has high crime, if California has terrible immigration laws and sanctuary cities that can't afford, it's California, because we have allowed this group of people to run our state. I'm not sticking up for Democrats. I'm sticking up for you make your bed. And I saw the debates last night, and it's about to repeat itself. And it was really upsetting to me because I've interviewed all these mayors in California, and they don't want a repeat of this. And it doesn't matter if they're Democratic or Republican. They want better governance. They want control of their cities. They don't want unfunded mandates. They don't want SB 79. They want, when you vote in a bill, Prop 36, the crime bill, they want it funded. What happens generally with almost all of the mayors is that they have a history in the town that they either grew up or were born in that town, and they've been through all of the changes in California over a long period of time, from being born there to going to high school there, having friends there, maybe going away, going to college, and then coming back. But you also have a lot of them that have started businesses in California, entrepreneurial people that are really smart that landed in Silicon Valley or landed in a farming industry, and they are invested. Their political aspirations, for the most part, with most mayors that I've interviewed, are not the governorship or Secretary of State or going to DC, but truly trying to make the place that they live the best that it can be. And that is a very different political aspiration or job than Sacramento. The mayors in most cities that I have spoken to, whether they're Democratic or Republican, are not about the fact that they're Democratic or Republican. They're bipartisan people trying to have the best city possible. And they recognize that no matter who is in Sacramento, if Sacramento isn't working for them, they are affected negatively. Okay?
And they're focused on safety and economic development as their core principles.
That's right. And yes, immigration matters.
Like across the board, basically.
But across the board,
right.
They want safe streets and they want economic development. What they want is the pursuit of happiness, which is why we're all here. And you lose that when you watch the news. You're like, oh, it's all over. It's doom and gloom. Sacramento ruins California. Power-hungry politicians ruin California. They also spend all the money. You have roughly, 525 or 550,000 employees that are direct employees. 275,000 roughly are not in Sacramento. Those are the cities and the city councils and the board of supervisors and fire department and the police department and all these people that require tax dollars to function. And if you pay a mayor of a city $800 a month and they're working 70 hours a week, you've lost the plot. And that is our system. There's no money that goes to these cities. And then you come along with really good ideas for changing laws that might, like a tax bill, okay? There was a tax bill called the Bradley-Burns tax bill. This is a really good example of how California needs to listen to people that are in the middle. The Bradley-Burns tax bill said if you're going to charge 10% tax to Californians, right, that money goes, sales tax goes right to Sacramento. Then Sacramento's supposed to divvy it up. So an origin tax would send 1% of that 10% back to Brea or Fullerton or Cerritos or wherever you want to pick, wherever that sale happened, that money would go back. And that $20 million a year of 1% tax to the origin of that place would go to, their Christmas light program and cleaning up their streets and making retail storefronts look nice and all the things that a city would need for having a retail center. Okay? That's what Bradley-Burns was about, and it was a great idea. Amazon comes along, and 2019, you have really large online sales happening. In fact, there was a Wayfair versus somebody or other lawsuit where you, Jan, want to, mow your lawn tomorrow, and your lawnmower, it's not working, right? And you're like, oh, shoot. And you get in your car and you drive to Home Depot, and you're going to get a lawnmower and mow your lawn on Saturday. And you see the lawnmower and it's $179 at your local Home Depot, okay? And you go on your phone and Amazon Prime has it for $159, then they'll deliver it in the morning. Maybe you buy some, I don't know, a gas can or something else, but you leave Home Depot. And in the morning, your lawnmower arrives and you put the gas in it and you mow your lawn and you don't think anything more about it. But what really happened is Home Depot didn't get that sale, Bradley Burns did not apply, and that 1% sales tax did not come back to your city of origin. Instead, Amazon sent that sales tax to Sacramento and they kept it. Okay, Sacramento kept it, and your town.
So they're incentivized. They're incentivized to support this kind of e-commerce or whatever because they're going to collect that 1% and not the local community. Fascinating.
And then it grows over the course of 5 years during COVID, and then you start putting fulfillment centers in towns, like a small town that doesn't have any retail. Okay. And that town that doesn't have any retail gets all of the sales from all the towns all over because that's the fulfillment center. So now you got to go and you're in a fight with small towns that have made deals with Amazon and made deals with large companies that do drop shipping. And here you've got this massive drop shipping enterprise across America ruining Main Street, okay? And there's wear and tear on those roads. There's trucking, there's boxing and trash, there's drivers that, are not from the local area, and the retail stores lose all the sales and get none of the sales tax back to the city. And I say, why don't we fix that? And everyone says, well, you're going to get a lot of pushback because, these guys are the ones that write the big checks to the big politicians. And these guys are the ones that go to smaller towns that don't have any sales and say, let us put a fulfillment center here. And guess how much money you're going to make on that fulfillment center? And the whole thing gets out of balance. And again, I say it again, a good intention paves the road directly to hell. And across California, you have e-commerce eating up all these small main streets. And the heart of California is small business. It is the most important thing, is the SBA. And letting people have the American dream by starting a small business. And letting them have a Scotch tape store, as they used to make fun of on Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, but it was, it doesn't matter what your business idea is. You should have the right to have it and for it to be successful. And in California, with the constraints from Sacramento, homeless people can sleep in the front door of your business and you are not allowed to touch them. Do you know that it is okay for a person to defecate in the middle of the median of your street if they are 200 feet away from a bathroom? Yet if your dog does, you have to pick it up. But a person does not have to pick up behind themselves. We've lost the plot. We have lost the plot. Do you know that we haven't cited people for dumping trash in California since 2020, or since COVID? Okay, so we used to have we have littering laws, right?
Right. You see the signs on the highways.
Yeah, don't litter. You can. So I was looking for litter citations because I noticed how dirty California is. I'm like, are we not? I just randomly said something there. I'm like, hey, you guys, have we not been citing for littering? Because how is this so dirty, right? We haven't been. And yet we're so worried about the air, but we're throwing trash on the ground. It's just, if you just cleaned up California, it would just be like a better place to start. I hate a dirty room, I can't stand leaving dishes in the sink. And we have so many dishes in the sink, we have to go use the neighbor's sink. We need a restart. We need somebody that's talking to mayors.
Elaine, one quick sec, we're going to take a break, and folks, we're going to be right back. And we're back with California entrepreneur Elaine Culotti. What do we do here? What are there seems to be a few steps, and starting, what's the small thing and what's the big thing?
So I think that overall, if you look at California as a state, you have 40 million people in California, roughly. I think it's closer to 42, but that's just because we can't really count them. 40 million people, only 17.5 million people pay taxes in California, which is, less than half. It's a big job to manage California fiscally, and there are plenty of mayors that manage the emotional side and the social side and the pursuit of happiness side of the people that believe in them and their city councils and their neighborhoods. But when you have somebody at the top pushing downstream what's called unfunded mandates onto those people, you create war in those city halls. You create war with those mayors because they are saying, no, stop oppressing us. with your mandates, we don't want to do it. And then city council is pushed into it, and everybody gets pushed into it, and then the citizens rebel, which is very much what has happened in Los Angeles with Mayor Karen Bass. So you have a bad business plan, and then you say, why don't we do the 2026 billionaires tax reform? And we're going to go through the one customer that's paying all the bills. We're going to dig in their underwear drawer and see if we can extract an additional $100 million. And we're going to use that for unfunded Medicare and Medi-Cal for illegal aliens. And then you expect that not to backfire. Well, it did. Mm-hmm. $1 trillion just walked. Mm-hmm. About $66 billion of the general fund. The total amount they were trying to get was $100 billion. And they haven't even, because it's retro, they've already lost half of what they were hoping to gain. The worst part is they've lost it in perpetuity. It cost 5% to move. 5% is what they want of the $2 trillion in assets that belong to basically 200 guys. Mm-hmm. They've already lost the plot. And so I say, as a new governor coming into California, do you really want to inherit that business plan anyway? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. Like, get rid of all of it and let's start over, and let's create 47% of the general fund in small business. And let's put together, a great American credit union that's funded by billionaires as a loan. Let's raise $500 billion and let's do California SBA, but we won't call it that. And we'll invest in California.
A final quick thought as we finish.
If you were to take the management of 250,000 people under a city council and a mayor and a group of city advocates, and the federal money and the state money were flipped, where 5 to 7 to 10% remained with the state, and the majority of the money went to the city, and those responsible city members could spend that money in their city the way that they had planned to spend it, mm-hmm. we would have a successful governing body in California. But it's flipped. Mm-hmm. They get less than 5%. Sometimes they don't get any, certainly in sales tax. Mm-hmm. And I think it's upside down. It's upside down world.
Well, Elaine Culotti, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you, Jan, for having me. I hope I get invited back on my next Mayor's Matter tour in a different state.
Thank you all for joining Elaine Culotti and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Jan Jekielek.